Are you stressing about your IRS tax problems? Have you received notices from the IRS threatening to garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, or seize your property? You need an ally. Allies Tax Relief has tax attorneys and enrolled agents that are ready to fight for you. They have saved millions for taxpayers just like you. Allies Tax Relief can help put a stop to IRS collections and, most importantly, negotiate your tax debt. Here's Brenda, a happy client of Allies Tax Relief.
I owed the IRS around $57,000, and they're about to start garnishing my paychecks. I heard a commercial on the radio about Allies Tax Relief, so I thought I'd give them a call. After a day, they were able to at least stop the garnishments, and after a few months of negotiations, I walked away owing the IRS only $301.
If you owe the IRS, call Allies Tax Relief right now for your free consultation. Call 800-230-5174. 800-230-5174. That's 800-230-5174.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Dino Day. Celebrate on June 1st at all Sinclair locations. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have a really nice drive in progress on the Valley Freeways and main secondaries downtown. Salt Lake City PD working an accident at 4th West and 300 South. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And we could see a few showers on the Wasatch Front today, but the rest of the week looks dry with a warming trend. Highs will be in the 70s up to the 80s on Friday. 73 degrees and sunny right now. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, a big wedge has emerged within the Democratic Party over the war of Israel, what's happening in Gaza. The divide is sure to have a big impact on the November election. Donald Trump, of course, has been spending the last few weeks locked up in a New York courtroom instead of out on the campaign trail. And meanwhile, independent candidate Robert Kennedy Jr. is overcoming a host of hurdles when it comes to ballot access that may end up achieving his goal of getting on the ballot in most of the states across the country. So those are all the big headlines. Let's look underneath those headlines so we can think again. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
As we look at the presidential race, we want to think again about what we think we know. Things are ever changing, and while we are just a little less than 6 months away from the first Tuesday of November, I will remind everyone it's the first Wednesday of November that actually matters the most, which is the day we'll all get up, regardless of the election results, go to work, take care of our families, help our neighbor, coach Little League, play in the neighborhood, make a difference for somebody, and that's why the country's going to be just fine. Always remember that. There'll be a lot of drama in between. So let's talk about some of the drama and some of the things that are going on as it relates to the election so you know what's happening underneath the headlines. One of the interesting ones to me is Robert Kennedy Jr. Announced to a crowd in Austin, Texas over the weekend that they had achieved enough signatures to actually qualify for ballot access in the Lone Star State.
We had an historic day today in Texas. We handed in almost just under 250,000 signatures. The pundits, you heard them from the beginning of this campaign, were saying it would be impossible for us to get on the ballot. And we got on the ballot in Texas. And if you can get on in Texas, we can get on everywhere.
So that's a big moment there for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his campaign, getting on the ballot there in Texas. Of course, already on the ballot here in the state of Utah, where the threshold is much, much smaller. The interesting thing to me in all of this, and there are the detractors, again, whether you like his politics or not, or whether you think his campaign is good or not, he's bringing out some really important points, I think. And one of those is simply the access to the ballot. It should not take tens of millions of dollars to get ballot access in all 50 states. Ballot access is an interesting thing. We see that here in the state of Utah. As candidates, both Democrats and Republicans can get on the ballot one of two ways. They can either go through their respective caucus and convention system, or they can collect signatures and get on the ballot that way for the primary. And I think both of those have their problems and their challenges. And so it's an interesting thing to look at from a presidential standpoint of not only does it take just millions of dollars to execute the signatures you have to get, but there's also all of these legal lawsuits that get filed in the process over how you collected the signatures and what happened in Texas and how did this relate to what's going on in California and New York. And it's just way too expensive, and it makes it way too easy for the major political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, to maintain control of the entire system, which determines who gets to be at presidential debates, for example. And so I do think that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is at least saying, hey, there is a path to actually do this. Super expensive, super hard. But I think it's important for all of us to recognize that while we can say that the system is broken, that our politics is broken, we have to break it open, which means we have to get to a point where people can say, if we want change, if we want something other than what the two main political parties are serving up, then we have to get to a point where people can say, oh, it's actually doable. Wow, an independent could win, or a third-party candidate could win, because that makes it a lot easier to cast those ballots. We'll come back to that a little later on in the show today. Let's look at the other major candidates rolling through the week. Earlier this morning, President Biden announced some tariffs on Chinese products, including electric vehicles, interesting, in an effort to compete with China and promote American manufacturing.
The Chinese government is subsidizing excess capacity. They're flooding the market. They're driving manufacturing companies out of business in Europe. But we won't let that happen here in America. These key sectors, my administration is combining investments in America with tariffs that are strategic and targeted.
So really interesting. I think that's going to be one of the interesting, we always talk about tariff wars, but it's usually between the U.S. and China. I think we're going to have a tariff war between the current president and the former president to see who can do it bigger or more to convince the blue-collar workers that they have their back and that they're looking out for them. So that was the president this morning. The president's going on a tour this week, and, of course, it's a Tuesday, so it must be infrastructure week, and the president is hitting infrastructure again, trying to tout the things that came through the infrastructure bill, and some of those things are actually getting ready to begin. We talked about this last week, talked about the fact that it's really hard to spend all that money, those trillions of dollars. It often gets tied up in regulatory regimes and red tape. And so even though the president wants to tout those wins from his signature piece of legislation that was passed, there's not a lot to show because it's so slow and it takes so long. So the president's trying to navigate that as he goes through the week. Meanwhile, the former president, who has spent most of his time in a courtroom, actually held a campaign rally over the weekend in New Jersey. And he urged Americans to set aside their differences and reject his opponent's policies.
We don't have to agree on everything, but we can agree that we want strong borders, not open borders. We want the American dream, not the Biden inflation nightmare. So it's time to set other differences aside and come together, get the job done for America. We're going to make America great again, and we're going to do it fast.
So that's the former president at a campaign rally in New Jersey over the weekend. That was his window to campaign for the week. He gets to do weekends, and Wednesdays are the days that he's able to not be in the courtroom there in New York. So as you look at all of this playing out, of course, the numbers continue to ebb and flow. And in the latest poll of the big swing states, the former president actually has the advantage over the current president. In some places by some numbers that are a little bit bigger than you would expect. In Arizona, former President Trump is up by about 6 points with likely voters, and that's the one I'm always looking at. Registered voters doesn't mean a whole lot to me, especially at this stage of the game, and so that's an important thing to think about when you see numbers. Are they talking about registered voters? Are they talking about citizens? Or are they talking about likely voters? In other words, is this someone who has shown up and voted consistently over time so that they are likely to actually show up on Election Day? Likely voters is everything. Any poll that doesn't have likely voters, to me, is a little suspect and probably not too significant because you got to get to those who have proven that they'll actually show up on Election Day. The former president also has about a 9-point lead in Georgia, is up a single digit with likely voters in Michigan. He's up significantly in Nevada, which would be a flip. along with Pennsylvania as well. So all of that is a little look under the hood as it relates to the presidential politics. We are 27 lifetimes away from the first Tuesday of November. There'll be lots of ebbs and flows. But the important thing for all of us to think through is, do we all have access to the ballot? Are our candidates putting forward the kinds of principles and the kind of policies, or are they just playing more of the political game to just try to win? You can win an election, but that doesn't necessarily mean you get to lead. It's the leadership question that we got to get focused on. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Get the news.
Salt Lake City is looking to shake up the zoning of single-family homes.
And a deeper understanding of the news.
2 homes on what was 1 lot.
Feels like an afterthought, and I think it's going to feel crowded.
Tim and Amanda catch you up first thing in the morning. Then join Dave and Debbie and Boyd Matheson for conversation about the news middays. And Jeff Kaplan has the latest developments on your drive home. For news and talk, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
There are so many soda weight loss success stories, Tim, like your daughter.
She lost 42 pounds.
Like me, I lost 34 pounds. And this is Chuck, who has had even more success.
I let go of about 120 pounds in about 1 year. Mobility's back. There was times like putting on socks and shoes, you'd be a little winded bending down. You know, when people see me, they're just shocked. You know, they always ask you, like, what'd you do? And I tell them, I came to soda, I did that. You know, I tell them about it. At the end of the day, it's accountability. These guys, I don't think I would have done it on my own if I didn't have their support.
I tried to do it on my own, Tim. I failed miserably. I just got frustrated because I thought I was eating right, and I just kept gaining weight.
And that nutritionist that is with you every step of the way is the difference maker.
Yeah.
It's that accountability we talk about. And his example of being able to tie your shoes, it's the little things that'll change in your life. Find out how this great program can help you. Go to sodaweightloss.com. It is spelled SOTA, and it stands for State of the
Art.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
Josh loves springtime in Utah, but he hates to paint, so he called Rhino Shield.
We have a cedar-sided home at the end of the woods, painted like 1980s beige, and we wanted something that was more of a mid-century and modern look. We were driving around and we saw a sign in somebody's yard and said Rhino Shield. It's not paint.
Rhino Shield's ceramic technology is formulated for our unique climate here in Utah and is Class 1 fire rated.
Gave Rhino Shield a call, and in fact, they were fantastic with the arrangement on scheduling. The 25-year guarantee was important to us. This is our forever home, and we want to make sure that whatever we're doing is going to last a long time.
Utah, you can have the 25-year guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield for 15% off the regular price.
I'd say if you're thinking about Rhino Shield, just do it. It's been 2 years now, and it still looks like the day it went on.
This offer is limited, so call 435-246-4466, 435-246-4466, or rhinoshieldwest.com.
Go Rhino Shield.
You know, Deb, you and I have had this conversation so many times. We think, oh, I wish I had a little more light here or maybe a ceiling fan there.
That's why we love Master Electrical. So anytime we have an electrical problem, we know we can call them and they will give us their upfront pricing guarantee.
Because we're not going to do it yourself. We're going to leave it to the professionals. And this upfront pricing guarantee is fantastic. I'm sure you've been bitten by bids in the past where they say, oh, that's going to take half a day. And then 2 weeks later, The bid and the invoice have nothing to do with each other.
Not only will you get their upfront pricing guarantee, but you will never see an upcharge. Their pricing system simply won't allow it.
Master Electrical proudly serves from Logan to Santaquin.
They do everything that has to do with electrical, and they're always open, including for emergency services. The phone number to call is 801-543-2222.
801-543-2222, or check them out online at masterelectrical.com.
Remember when vacationing was affordable? Well, General RV helps you vacation more for less, especially now with rollback prices on every motorhome, fifth wheel, travel trailer, and more. It's our rollback pricing event, May 15th through the 18th. This is your chance to get the best deal ever. Plus immediate delivery on select models. And we're also giving you up to $1,500 in fuel free. See dealer for details. Pay less, vacation more. Only at General RV. In Draper off I-15.
Get the support you need for business success. Get Mountain America Business Services. With personalized service and financial tools, you'll see real results. Details at macu.com/business.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, the charges filed today against the man accused of running down a Santaquin police sergeant include the possibility of the death penalty. Second, Utahns are still younger than most other Americans, but we are getting older. And third, who dumped walleye into Strawberry Reservoir? There's a reward if you can tell state wildlife officers who did it. 73 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
We're going to stay with the question about the presidential race as we march things forward here on Inside Sources. Latest New York Times poll has had some pretty ominous signs for the Biden campaign. Again, a long way to the first Tuesday in November. But we wanted to dig underneath those headlines and look at the numbers just a little bit to see what is happening, what coalitions are gelling, where the divisions are within the Democrats and the Republicans is really interesting to me. Brett Samuels, of course, is a White House reporter for The Hill, thehill.com. And actually had a great piece today talking about some of the alarm bells that might be going off inside the Biden campaign, looking at the new numbers. And Brett, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Boyd.
All right, so let's dig into these. These were focused on some of the swing states in particular. Give us a sense of the numbers, and let's see if we can dig underneath them a little bit.
Yeah, so as you said, certainly not what the Biden campaign wanted to see out of this poll, which surveys registered voters in 6 of the battleground states that are likely to decide the outcome in November. That includes Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. So, sort of broad strokes, Trump is leading Biden in 5 out of those 6 states, with Wisconsin being the one state where Biden is ahead of Trump. And potentially more concerning for Biden is some of those states, notably Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia. Trump is pretty handily ahead and is almost hitting 50% in some of those states. So, broadly speaking, there's certainly work for the Biden campaign to do here. And as you said in the open, certainly a long way to go before November. But, not what the Biden campaign wanted to see when they're hoping to build this sense of momentum.
Yeah, let's unpack a little bit of those. Let's start with the kind of the blue wall portion of the program. It was what ultimately led to the breaking of that wall, was what led to the former president's victory in 2016 in terms of Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Now that's been a really important part of the Biden strategy, both in 2020 and now moving into 2024. What are you seeing just underneath those top-line numbers? Wisconsin, you said the president is ahead by just a smidge. What are you seeing underneath the numbers as it relates to Michigan and Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so as you said, the blue wall, those 3 states, obviously hugely important. If you take everything else away, President Biden could win re-election by sweeping those 3 states. And then if he wins, for example, the Nebraska congressional district, those electoral votes, that would be enough to get him to 270. So really those 3 states are hugely important to the Biden campaign if they are to win re-election. Now, as you mentioned, Wisconsin has, amongst registered voters, Biden is ahead by just a couple of percentage points. Pennsylvania and Michigan are 2 areas, Pennsylvania in particular, where he's closely trailing former President Trump. And these are areas where, they have sort of differing electorates that, different areas where Biden is either struggling or resonating. For example, Michigan obviously has a very large Arab American population, and this poll found that there's great frustration amongst, voters who Biden should be winning over, in theory, young voters and the like, who are frustrated over his handling of the situation in Gaza, and that's something that might resonate more in the state of Michigan, for example. Pennsylvania, there's frustration about the economy. So, certainly sort of different areas where Biden needs to work on some of these voters, but certainly those three states, I think, are going to be a huge focus for the next 5+ months here for the Biden campaign.
Yeah, so interesting looking at the different issues that are really resonating. As you said, in Pennsylvania, it's about inflation, the economy, my grocery bill, some of those kinds of things. Michigan has some very interesting things in terms of some of the divisions in terms of the Middle East and the president's handling of relationships with Israel, what's happening inside of Gaza. Anything you're seeing underneath the numbers there?
Yeah, it's interesting because, Gaza, as you mentioned, and the situation in the Middle East is not necessarily at the top of the list for a lot of voters as far as, the issue that's most important to them. But the problem for Biden is that voters who are saying that they disapprove of Biden and his handling of the situation in the Middle East, or who are saying that they may not vote for him in November over that, those are voters who are more traditional Democratic voters. They're young voters. Folks who Biden won in 2020 and in theory would need to win again in 2024 if he's to, return to the White House to win a state like Michigan again. So, it may not be the biggest majority of voters who are citing the situation in Gaza as, the sort of sole issue behind their vote, but those are voters that Biden can ill afford to lose. So, it may not be that they like Trump better on that policy, but certainly if they stay home, if they vote for a third-party candidate, that could really be a big deal in a state like Michigan, where Biden's margins are going to be fairly slim.
Yeah, let's look at the third-party avenue there. We know that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Announced over the weekend that he had achieved ballot access in the state of Texas, and they are working in a lot of places, including places like Michigan. How do you see that playing, and just how those numbers kind of add up if we do have a third-party candidate in a lot of those key battleground states?
Right. So, this poll found certainly that RFK Jr.'s presence, does not help Biden. It does not lead to him overtaking Trump in any of these states. Trump is still ahead in these battleground states. There is this question of whether he hurts Trump, or if he hurts Biden, if he hurts both of them. We've seen in the last few weeks, especially, the Trump campaign and his allies have really ramped up their attacks on RFK Jr., trying to paint him as this radical liberal, trying to point out, his views on climate, on guns, on abortion, his views on vaccinations, in an effort to basically say, hey, this guy is not sort of the conservative anti-government type that people might think he is. He's more of this radical left figure. So, take that as a sign, perhaps, that the Trump campaign is aware that RFK Jr. may not just drag down Biden. He could drag down Trump as well. So certainly that bears watching for the next several months as we see, as you mentioned, RFK Jr. continue to get on ballots across the country.
Yeah. And then finally, let's look out west a little bit, looking at Arizona and Nevada in particular. Those are areas where the gap seems to be growing. These were places that President Biden did very well in 20. Are these going to be those that kind of flip, and what's the impact there?
Yeah, so certainly, as you mentioned, the margin is quite large in those states. Trump winning by double digits in Nevada over Biden, not quite double digits in Arizona, but still a pretty sizable gap over Biden there. And, this is, again, a sort of warning sign for the Biden campaign. This poll found that he's hemorrhaging support amongst black voters, amongst Hispanic voters. With Hispanic voters in particular, Trump and Biden are essentially tied or within the margin of error. It's just within a few percentage points as far as support for those two candidates. So certainly warning signs there, and that could be a factor out west in Nevada and Arizona. The border in Arizona is obviously a big issue and something that Trump has been keen to go on offense against Biden on. So certainly some cause for concern out there. Now, the Biden campaign would argue that, they have the infrastructure, they have the money, that they're able to make up these gaps over the course of 5+ months in ways that Trump and his campaign may not. And they've also pointed to the fact that with not just registered voters, but likely voters, which are those who are who say that they're definitely going to vote, that Biden fares better with those folks. So, the Biden campaign, they're sort of, retaining some optimism and picking out some of the silver linings in this poll. But on the whole, as you said, Boyd, not what the Biden campaign wants to see, particularly in those Sun Belt states that Biden won in 2020.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. And I think you're right, and you pointed this out in your piece, that the organizational structure is a big thing that I don't think we give enough credit to. That'll play out in a pretty significant way when we get to the fall, as well as having the big resources for any candidate at any level is time and money. And the Biden campaign seems to have plenty of both of those. The former president, I think, is going to struggle on both those fronts as we move through the summer and into the fall. Brett Samuels, White House reporter for The Hill. Great stuff. Check out his piece at thehill.com. Brett, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks again for having me.
All right, again, that's Brett Samuels, White House reporter for The Hill. That's where the numbers are, and as Brett said, not great news for the Biden campaign, but again, it's a little less than 6 months to go to the first Tuesday of November. Long, long way to go. Lots going to take place. We'll track it all right here on KSL News Radio. We'll be right back.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. The man accused of hitting and killing Santaquin Police Sergeant Bill Hoosier is now in jail looking at 9 felony charges. One of those charges filed today is aggravated murder. Utah County Attorney Jeffrey Gray says that has one of 3 possible sentences.
The death penalty, life in prison without the possibility of parole, or 25 years to life in prison with the possibility of parole.
Michael Jane is scheduled for a preliminary hearing on those tomorrow afternoon. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Michael Cohen, former President Donald Trump's attorney and fixer at one time, is testifying against him in the hush money trial this afternoon and being cross-examined by defense witnesses. He did say that his loyalty to Donald Trump is what got him in trouble in the first place and landed him in prison. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average is up on the day now 142 points. The NASDAQ is up 126. Our KSL weather looks like we'll see a little bit more sunshine through this week. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the 9s, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
It's been a rough winter for sure, but visitors are flocking to Box Elder County. Our feathered visitors, that is. Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge is busy hosting swans to swallows, geese to grebes. The spring migration is in full swing, and all that's missing is you. Box Elder County really is for the birds. Just a short 60 minutes north of Salt Lake, Box Elder County is the perfect place to make memories and celebrate spring, along with spending time with our feathered friends. You'll experience amazing restaurants and unique shopping. Come take a soak at Crystal Hot Springs, home to the highest mineral content of any natural hot springs in the world. Let the winter melt away as you relax and rejuvenate. Take in a theater performance at one of the live theaters or visit one of the fine museums. Visitors really are chirping all about Box Elder County. Check out visitboxeldercounty.com and see why Box Elder County is for the birds. That's boxeldercounty.com.
My name is J.R. Bird. As mayor of Roosevelt, I increased transparency, led the charge to pass term limits, and kept taxes low. As your congressman, I will leverage my experience in the energy sector to champion energy independence and dominance. I'm determined to defend the unborn, secure our borders, uphold our Second Amendment rights, and bring the same level of transparency that we've upheld locally. I hope to earn your support.
Paid for by Bird for Congress.
Progressive presents 10 things on a plumber's to-do list that are harder than getting a small business insurance quote. Waking up for 5 a.m. plumbing disasters, finding out why water is pouring from the ceiling, replacing a pipe in a home from the 1800s, then dealing with invoices or your awkward apprentice or that really weird smell, and then there's breathing and eating and, of course, clogs. But the easiest thing on any small business owner's to-do list? Seeing if you could save on the business insurance that's right for you. Get a quote in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers.
Pizza's here. Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
It's Dino Day at all Sinclair locations Saturday, June 1st. Fuel up, saving up to 30 cents per gallon on Sinclair's top-tier premium fuel with Dino Pay. Come early and grab some Dino swag. Remember, Saturday, June 1st at all Sinclair locations.
Love the filler moments at a Sinclair gas station near you with Dino Care, our top-tier gasoline for a cleaner engine. Some sweet and salty snacks for the commute, and a big green Dino for the memories. Find a gas station near you at sinclairoil.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Dino Day. Celebrate on June 1st at all Sinclair locations. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have a crash in Weber County, northbound I-15 near 31st Street, Ogden, but it is out of traffic on the right shoulder, so there's no delays. The UACPA supports certified public accountants in Utah through ongoing professional education and leadership development. Find a CPA that works for you, uacpa.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We could see a few showers on the Wasatch Front today. The rest of the week, though, looks dry with a warming trend. Highs will be in the 70s and then up to the 80s on Friday. Right now, 73 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomis from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
We are really thrilled and honored today to have joining us in the studio Khosrow Semnani, an extraordinary entrepreneur, an extraordinary philanthropist, someone who goes about doing good, making a difference every day in our community, and have been doing it for so long. Khoz, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Boyd. You're being too kind. I don't deserve it all.
I just call balls and strikes. It is. That's the truth. We focus on the truth here on this show.
Thank you.
And you have been such an important part of our community for so many years. Your businesses have been successful, but more important, you're always looking for a way to make a difference. And we had the chance to spend a day together at the summit, the Kindness Summit, just a few weeks ago at the University of Utah. And you and the Semnani Family Foundation are the driving force behind that. And give us a little bit of the backstory. How did that all come about?
Backstory, that's a good way of putting it. Well, I just quickly tell you I'm an immigrant that I came here years ago. I got dropped off over at the Greyhound bus depot, not too far from the station. That was over 50 years ago. Wow. I didn't know how lucky I was that I was in Utah, and that's where I stayed. And it's been home and for myself, my family, my wife, of course, and it's been a great place to work. And what is so really important and that really distinguishes Utah, at least my experience, is the people here are exceptionally kind and welcoming to people from other places, exceptionally, very welcoming. They give me opportunities to do things, and of course, philanthropy was cornerstone of many things that I've done, and I've been blessed that I'm able to be part of the solution.
Yeah,
and that is important, and taking advantage of that. I'm hoping that we can continue to do more. When we started this One Kind Act today, is our last, I shouldn't say the last, but latest project.
Yeah.
I hope you have other ones.
many to come. And part of that One Kind Act was this summit up at the University of Utah. And it was such an amazing collection of people and stories and so many extraordinary things of people just doing good because they can and because they're willing to just make that effort to make a difference.
Well, let me tell you a secret. The secret is when you're kind, you're happier. That's the secret.
Yeah.
And people are, I think by nature, they're kind if given opportunity and reminded of. And it makes you happy, makes your day go a lot easier. And you can be kind to every strangers, your family, your friends, the environment, anything, to animals.
Yeah.
So, and being kind is something that I believe we can all share, regardless of religion, race, language, background. Yeah. And kindness is promoted by everybody.
Yeah.
And that's what we are hoping to accomplish and to remind them, and people be happier.
Yeah. And we get so busy, we chase and we race around on things that we're working on, and sometimes we forget that little moment, that little opportunity to stand up and really, really make a difference. You put some great challenges out into the community because sometimes we think, I have to do some big project on the other side of the world, or I have to be part of some amazing transformation. But it is neighbor helping neighbor in need, but it's also businesses being active and leaning into their community. So businesses need to be part of this One Kind Act today.
I couldn't agree with you more, Boyd. Every business that I've known that they have been respectful and kind to their customers, to their associates, to their own employees, they've done very well. And I can tell you that for a fact. The professor at the University of Utah, which I'm in liberty of sharing his name, Dr. Noah Gardner, he actually spoke in one of our events, and he said that there's scientific information that people who actually are kind, they're happier. When they're happier, they're more productive. And when they're more productive, they're more courteous, and their businesses do very well. I'm happy to tell you, Zions Bank has already joined us. University of Utah is not a business, but it's an institution, major institution, joined us. Many other businesses that they've come across that they've been already working with us, and Highland High School, Highland Elementary School, a number of schools that have already joined us. So they're very happy.
Yeah, I love that as these organizations and schools, youth organizations are all signing up, and they can go to thepowerofkind.org. They can take that pledge. They can become a place of kindness. Some of the stories that we heard up at the summit were just extraordinary to me. Some of these young kids making goals of 10,000 acts of kindness, and I think they ended up doing 30 or 40,000 as only kids could. But it does have that multiplier effect. And as you were talking about those businesses, someone who's done an act of kindness is going to feel better, will be more productive. So it's actually good business to be kind.
Yes, the businesses that they are kind, their people are happier. They can communicate. They can do things better. It's just a different atmosphere of working with customers, and that really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, no question about that.
I agree.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of the day that I just keep thinking about, and I think it was a special moment for you as well. We live in an age that is so divisive on so many different things. But we had religious leaders from across the faith spectrum on stage for almost an hour, and you could have heard a pin drop up there at the University of Utah. What was it that made that so important and so special for you?
We all come from different backgrounds, actually. And when I was thinking about what it is that we all have in common, regardless of our religion, race, language, everything else, all religions, they promote kindness. All parents promote kindness to their children. So I said, this is the common denominator, which is we all have.
Yeah.
I just have to remind them. So our whole campaign revolves around that. And in the words of President Randall of University of Utah, he said we should have Kindness Summit not only once a year, we should have it once every month. I couldn't agree with you
Yeah.
more. It's just a matter of logistics, putting it together.
Yeah.
But honestly, I mean, the kindness that we all have in common, we can share that. We had Archbishop of Catholic Church, Bishop of Salt Lake City, Bishop Solis. We had Rabbi Spector. We had from Muslim Imam Yasser. We had Bishop Spiegel.
Yeah.
Yes. And, we had all these wonderful people. They all came, sat there and arms in arms and just supporting the whole idea of kindness. And that's like I said, regardless of your religion or race or language, kindness is the international language. We all share that.
It really is. And I was having a hard time being the moderator because I was taking so many notes from everything that that group was saying. It was just such a powerful and important moment to see that play out. And I think you're right. I think we talked a little bit up there about, we often say Utah is the crossroads of the West, and we've extended that it's really the crossroads of the world. And you're out to make it the crossroads of kindness around the world.
Why not? I mean, everything is possible. First in dream and next in reality. We should just do it.
Yeah.
And I think it was very well received. And that's what I'm saying. In Utah, we have that ability to experience and do what the American dream is all about.
Yeah.
But not only in business and in commercial world, but in being individual and trying to do something that is the right thing for everybody, not only at this time, but for ages to come. And that's what I'm hoping, that we all participate, and we have a number of people have, and I'm really very encouraged by the support that we're getting. And thank you to you as a moderator. You did the magic job over there.
It was such a gift to be. It was I kept saying it's the best thing that happened to me all week, and it was such a great way to spend it. I know this has a real personal connection for you, both in terms of your own history and coming here to the state, and those who did show you acts of kindness early on. I know this also has a connection to your mother and of course to the Family Foundation. Give us a little sense of that connection and why this is so important to you.
As I said, we have all different backgrounds. I'm from Iran, and in Iran, there are many philosophers that they promoted kindness. And there's a gold saying with kindness. They say, we all walk into a same room, only from different doors. That room is kindness. We just come from different doors.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And when you plant the seed of kindness, you don't know how many good things that tree of kindness is going to bear. And, people, I really want to take the opportunity and thank Dr. Daniel Miles, who was my physics professor, who helped me to get a job. And also Dr. Henry Eyring, the father, who passed away many years ago. He helped me. I worked for him, and he helped me promote and get a better jobs and so on. And they were all so kind to me, and they grabbed my arms and pulled me up.
Yeah.
And I owe it to them. I really do owe it to them. And I'm just blessed that I can do this now for our community and bring back something that I learned when I was a child in Iran, and my teaching back then from my grandmother and my family, but also what I've learned here, I experienced here. It's time to give back, essentially.
Yeah. Fantastic. It is an extraordinary effort. It is not just a moment, not just an event. It is a movement that I think will continue to grow here, not just in the state of Utah, but across the country and around the world. Khosrow Semnani, extraordinary. Great to have you in today.
Yes.
Khosrow, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, Boyd.
We're going to step aside for a quick break, and we're going to stay with that conversation and an important legacy of the Candy Bomber coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back on KSL News Radio.
Achieving the extraordinary, getting things done. That's the Utah way. And that's Brad Wilson. He delivered the biggest tax cut Utah's ever seen, keeping more money in your pocket. And on the Second Amendment, when others caved, Brad Wilson stood tall, enacted constitutional carry. Wilson stood up to the EPA, sued Joe Biden to protect Utah's energy industry, and won. And when others backed down on illegal immigration, Wilson didn't buckle. He banned sanctuary cities. In the U.S. Senate, he'd bring the Utah way to Washington, taking Joe Biden's agenda head on. That's why over 60 mayors, 22 sheriffs, and leading conservatives across Utah are supporting Brad Wilson for U.S. Senate, because Brad Wilson's the tested, trusted Utah conservative for U.S. Senate. Join them and thousands more supporting Brad Wilson at electbradwilson.com.
I'm Brad Wilson, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Wilson for Senate.
Don't be worried, be ready.
KSL News Radio has partnered with Be Ready Utah to provide the plans your family needs for an emergency, the tools and supplies to keep on hand, and the knowledge on how to keep a cool head.
It's Be Ready Utah. Listen to our show, Dave and Dujanovic, for Be Ready tips and tools.
Or you can always find the latest preparation info at BeReadyUtah.gov.
Be Ready Utah with KSL News Radio.
Are you stressing about your IRS tax problems? Have you received notices from the IRS threatening to garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, or seize your property? You need an ally. Allies Tax Relief has tax attorneys and enrolled agents that are ready to fight for you. They have saved millions for taxpayers just like you. Allies Tax Relief can help put a stop to IRS collections and, most importantly, negotiate your tax debt. Here's Brenda, a happy client of Allies Tax Relief.
I owed the IRS around $57,000, and they're about to start garnishing my paychecks. I heard a commercial on the radio about Allies Tax Relief, so I thought I'd give them a call. After a day, they were able to at least stop the garnishments, and after a few months of negotiations, I walked away owing the IRS only $301.
If you owe the IRS, call Allies Tax Relief right now for your free consultation. Call 800-230-5174. 800-230-5174. That's 800-230-5174.
Ah, the life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from PIE, or go to pieinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then PIE Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, it's possible, but not certain, that Michael Jane will face the death penalty if he's convicted of murder in the death of Police Sergeant Bill Hoosier. Second, Michael Cohen says it was his loyalty to Donald Trump that led him to violate the law and that sent him to prison. Cohen's a key prosecution witness in the former president's hush money trial. And third, allergy season has now arrived in Utah. Right now, 73 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and we're staying with the conversation of people who are out there just making a difference. Some of you remember the story of the candy bomber, Gail Halverson, and a lot of you have forgotten about that between COVID and, of course, he passed away just a few years ago. But it's time to retell that story and to make sure that that legacy continues on. And really thrilled to have Rhonda Perks joining us on the program, a consultant for the Beehive State Consulting, works with the Candy Bomber Foundation. And Rhonda, it's great to have you in the studio.
Thank you. It's great to be here with Utah's Voice of Reason, Boyd.
Yeah, we try on most days. You know, we're trying to keep that all rolling along. Well, let's get into the foundation with the Candy Bomber, and I know this is an important time of year because it's an anniversary, 75th anniversary.
Yes, so it is. This week is the 75th anniversary of the Berlin Airlift, and I've been sort of questioning people I've come into contact with the last couple of weeks about what they know about the Berlin Airlift, and as it turns out, that is a generational story, and a lot of people that are even younger than 40 have not heard this story before. And so I wanted to share that a little bit before we get into Gail Halverson's story. And I'll just give a very broad overview. It's, obviously,
when you talk about military efforts and World War II, everything is nuanced. It's very complicated. But just to kind of give a little bit of an overview, at the end of World War II, the country of Germany was divided up into, the Allies were going to be in the West, taking over in the West, and the Soviets in the East. But the city of Berlin was actually deep in the Soviet territory. But the city of Berlin, because they had almost all of the resources and almost all of the people, they divided that up into different areas that all different countries were taking part of. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right?
Exactly.
So one of the things that happened is the Allies came in and decided, because of the economy there, that they were going to introduce a new currency. And the Soviets didn't like that. And so they cut off really all of the ways for them to get resources in West Berlin. So they cut off water, they cut off land, and the only thing they did not cut off was air. And so the U.S. and the UK decided they were going to join forces, and the U.S. came up with this first. They were going to airlift all of the resources into West Berlin that West Berlin needed. And it was an amazing and miraculous undertaking, really. It is considered probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, military humanitarian effort and achievement in modern history. They had to, they got pretty efficient, and they did it for 1 year. And to give you a little bit of a scope of how they did that, there were about 1,500 flights a day that went in and out of Berlin. And a lot of those flights were taking in coal so that they could, have electricity and lights. And a lot of them had food. So that's kind of the story of the Berlin airlift. And part of that story we get to have here in Utah with the story of the Candy Bomber.
Yeah, it's such an important thing. And this is one of those classic things. We always say what we ignore or forget, our children are not likely to know. What our children don't know, our grandchildren are not likely to possess. And I think this extraordinary humanitarian effort at the end of World War II was so significant. And so now let's get to the Candy Bomber and hit a few bars there. And then we want to look at how we move this thing forward. A big gala coming up, and give us the details there.
Yes. So Gail Halvorson is considered a World War II hero. We get to celebrate him here in Utah. He grew up here, raised children here, and lived here throughout his life and career. And some of your listeners may remember in 2012, he was a special guest at the Tabernacle Choir Christmas concert, and he came out in his uniform, which still fit him.
Was amazing.
It was amazing. But his story is this. He was stationed in Berlin during the airlift and had an opportunity one day while he was out to meet some of these children. And as the story goes, he was so moved by them because they had nothing. I mean, these are children that had been raised with bombed out cities and very little food. And he had these 2 sticks of gum in his pocket, and he gave them to these 2 kids that were at the beginning of at the front of the fence. And he was so touched because they ripped these little pieces of gum in half into these little tiny pieces and shared it. And he was so impressed that they didn't try to keep it all. They shared it. And so he took that lesson throughout the rest of his life and used it. But what he really did is he promised those kids he would be back with something more. And so he made these little parachutes and went around to his unit and collected their candy bar rations. And the next time he flew over Berlin, he dropped these candy bars that were tied to these tiny handkerchief parachutes. And he did this over and over and over. And it was amazing, and he became known as the Berlin Candy Bomber, or Uncle Wiggle Wings, they called him, because he would wiggle his wings so that the children would know it was him.
It's coming, yeah.
He was coming. And it actually provided the United States with a wonderful PR piece of history.
Yeah.
And, so anyway, he went forth, did this for a long, long time, became pretty famous, was interviewed on, major television stations, and then kind of used that throughout his career.
Yeah, no question.
So that's his story, and we in Utah kind of get to claim it.
We do get to claim that, and now it's important that we extend that. Just in our last minute or so here, Rhonda, give us the details. We got a gala coming up How can people be involved? Give us the details.
Yes. So this is the first gala that the Candy Bomber Foundation has had since his death in 2022. And we are having General Minahan coming in. He's flying in from Hawaii, and he's going to be the keynote speaker. He is the commander of Air Mobility Command, and the Nevada Air National Guard is flying in a C-130 Mighty Herc for a static display.
Wonderful.
And as an added treat, our Lieutenant Governor is going to be saying a few words as well. That is coming up this Saturday night, and it is at the Spanish Fork Airport in Hangar 107, and it's going to be fantastic. And the ultimate goal of this foundation someday in a number of years is to build a small museum that highlights military humanitarian efforts throughout the world and also houses the Civil Air Patrol in Utah County.
Love that. That's so important. You can check it out at thecandybomber.org. One, you should just go through and read all the history that is on the site. It is so rich and so powerful. And then be part of that. Again, coming up this weekend, Hangar 107 at the Spanish Fork Airport. Some great speakers, great keynote, and a great opportunity to give back. Be part of making a difference in the community. That's what matters the most. And we do that really well in Utah. This is when we need to do even better at to preserve that legacy of not only the Candy Bomber, but the way we go about doing good and making a difference in our community. Rhonda, as always, thanks so much for joining us, and good luck on this event. Again, check it out at thecandybomber.org. Be part of the solution. Be part of the next generation. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news. Come back with hour number 2 here on Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top story this hour. City of Draper could be raising property taxes to increase how much it pays police officers and firefighters. KSL News Radio's Peter Johnson has more.
That tax hike would be 20%, or for the median house in Draper, about $78 a year. The mayor says it's needed because Draper could be missing out on police officers that go to better paying cities in the Salt Lake Valley. If you don the gold badge for the first time in Draper, you'll get about $61,000 a year. If you do it in Sandy, you'll get about $67,000.
The proposed budget for Draper's next fiscal year would increase starting police officers' salaries by about $4,000. The woman from Camas, charged with murdering her husband and later writing a book about grieving, has been found guilty of assaulting her sister-in-law. Police say the assault happened shortly after Corey Richen's husband, Eric, died. She's scheduled to be back in court later this week for a preliminary hearing regarding the death of her husband. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Some American aid workers are trapped in Gaza as fighting continues between Israeli forces and Hamas on the outskirts of the city of Rafah. 450,000 civilians have been trying to leave the city. The U.S. State Department says the Israelis need to do more to keep the Rafah border crossing open into Egypt and to keep aid flowing to civilians. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day 126 points. The NASDAQ is up 122. And our KSL weather, lots of sunshine, maybe some clouds, but no rain ahead. That's next. KSL News on 201.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
What does an Olympic venue? Memorial Weekend. Live music, delicious food, 20 years of family fun, and four-legged canine athletes gathered from all over the world all have in common? The 20th anniversary of the Soldier Hollow Sheepdog Classic, presented by Purina Pro Plan, with a new date, May 24th through 27th. Enjoy a weekend filled in the beautiful Soldier Hollow mountainside, watching these top dog athletes and their talented handlers navigate down rugged mountainous terrain to beat the clock, using pure agility and skill corralling the most spirited sheep in the world. Experience 4 days of high-value fun, exciting competition, plus dog, duck, and bird demos. Petting zoo, face painting, bagpipes, and delicious eateries all surrounded in beautiful Midway, Utah. Save the date for the Soldier Hollow Sheepdog Classic, presented by Purina Pro Plan, performance nutrition that fuels more sporting dog champions than any other brand. Also sponsored by Powder River and IFA Country Stores. May 24th through 27th. Details and tickets, visit SoldierHollowClassic.com. SoldierHollowClassic.com.
In a world where ugly siding, leaky gutters, and inefficient windows are sapping homeowners of their will to live, one company must save us all. This year, join RGS Exteriors as it embarks on a mission to eliminate outdated home exteriors, one Utah home at a time. Every plank of old, ugly siding must be replaced. Every leaky gutter must be eradicated. Every inefficient, energy-sapping window must be vanquished. Once and for all. Begin your epic remodeling quest by calling RGS Exteriors for a free estimate. Discover how a heroic team of experts will save your siding, gutters, or windows for a fair, no-nonsense price. Call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or journey online to rgsexteriors.com. RGS Exteriors, coming soon to a home near you.
If you're a person who has been dealing with some joint pain that, quite frankly, you're a little concerned is going to keep you from doing the things you love, especially as we start to turn the page here on weather and get to spring and summer-like temperatures, but you're afraid of surgery and don't want the downtime involved with that, don't like the idea of steroids or drugs, then listen closely, because the future of medicine is here in the Valley at QC Kinetics. QC, as I've told you, is the nation's leader in the most exciting revolution in pain management you've seen in decades. It's regenerative medicine. So if you have these achy joints, QC Kinetics wants you to know that your body was created to really heal itself with those natural biologics, but they need to be concentrated and sent directly to that spot where you're feeling the pain right now, and that's exactly what QC Kinetics can do today. You can get that relief without surgery or downtime. Call QC Kinetics for a free consultation. It's 385-766-1987. 385-766-1987. Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Dino Day. Celebrate on June 1st at all Sinclair locations. Here's Ricky Meese.
We do have a report of a possible accident. It's not been confirmed westbound on the 21st South Freeway near Bangerter Highway. There is a little bit of backup in the area, so expect some about a 5-minute delay. But overall, Valley Freeway traffic in good shape. When adventure calls, a new Murdoch Chevrolet is the answer. Right now, take up to 15% off MSRP on a Chevy Silverado 1500. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We could see a few showers on the Wasatch Front today. The rest of the week, though, looks dry with a warming trend. Highs will be in the 70s and 80s on Friday. And right now, we're at 73 degrees. It's partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
We spent a lot of time over the last several months talking about trust and the lack of it. Whether that's the falling trust in elected officials, the lack of trust in institutions, including institutions of government. We've even talked about how trust has been eroding between neighbors and in communities, which is a real concerning one. But what has trust got to do with the economy? And are we entering a trust recession? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, trust is a fundamental bedrock principle that is so crucial to so many different aspects of our lives and society as a whole. And I've been really excited to dive into this conversation. Jerry Useem is contributing writer at The Atlantic, has covered business and economics for the New York Times, Fortune, amongst other publications, and has a great piece called The End of Trust. And we want to dig into that today. And Jerry, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks.
So let's dive into this. It's easy when it comes to the economy. I don't think we usually dig into that trust factor, but there is that underlying trust that is crucial to all parts of the economy.
Yeah, we don't think of trust as like an economic indicator. When we're asking, how the economy's doing, we talk about is the market up or down, or how our new housing starts, what's inflation doing. But trust is arguably sort of one of the crucial factors that sort of makes business and capitalism possible. That low trust societies tend to have less vibrant economies and less successful businesses. And a lot of it has to do with just if you can't be certain that someone is going to do what they say they're going to do, you're going to be a lot more hesitant to partner with them or put your money in together, or whatever. And there, especially during COVID, I started looking at this because I was interested in the effect of not being face-to-face in the office for so many people.
Yeah.
And what I found was that a bunch of studies found that right at the beginning of the pandemic, that trust levels among employees stayed relatively stable, and then about 4 or 5 months in, they really plummeted. And this, I think, there's a lot of other factors, out there right now that sounds like you've been talking about on your show. But this is, my point is that it's not just, it's an economic issue, and it's important for the American economy that American trust levels stay high, and they have historically we have been a high trust nation.
Yeah, and that's such a fascinating component to all of this. One of the studies I was looking at used to be if you asked someone if they trusted their neighbor, that was like an 80%. Of course I trust my neighbor. And now that's down into the mid-20s. I think amongst young people it's even lower than that, in the high teens. And so you mentioned this in your piece. You talk about everything from whether it's the colleagues that you mentioned not being together and that trust plummeting during COVID, but it's also in things just like your local mechanic or someone who's going to do your accounting. That level of trust is such a crucial part to so many pieces of the economy.
Yeah, and what's tricky is it's really hard to figure out, is this person trustworthy? And we rely on all sorts of like really kind of super, very superficial cues. Just like, I don't know, talking about sports is a way of building trust.
Yeah.
Exchanging gossip. Hey, we like the same team. Yeah. Okay, that seems like a person I can trust. You strip away some of that stuff, and you find yourself without the kind of regular cues you rely on to get a sense of whether this is someone I should even be friends with, associate with. And in the absence of information, we can often start to build bad stories about what that person is thinking. I found myself, I email someone or text someone who I kind of know, they don't email me back. Why not? It's probably because they had a dental appointment, something really
right.
But I'm like, are they mad?
Do they hate
me? Are they flaky? Do they hate me? Did I say something bad? Are they taking my idea and taking it to a competitor? Right. And so I think, to me, what's troubling is the troubling possibility is that it's possible that people actually aren't becoming less trustworthy, but if we believe that, if we just start to become more suspicious, that can become kind of a self-fulfilling thing.
Yeah, and that's where I think it gets really dangerous. Is it does become this self-fulfilling prophecy as you go through that. And Jerry, just in our last minute here, give us one thing that we all ought to be thinking about doing to to build trust, whether that's in our organization, whether that's with a colleague, whether it's in our community? What do we need to do to change that and avoid that downward spiral?
Humor has been shown to work. Humor and reciprocity, telling something, sharing a minor vulnerability about yourself.
Yeah.
Like, hey, my kid just had this accident, and I got to go pick it. Something that you didn't do super. Not like, hey, I went on a crime spree and robbed,
a little courageous vulnerability. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I really messed up. I was redoing the plaster on my wall, and I totally screwed it up. These little things can oddly make us feel like that kind of warm glow of familiarity, as one researcher put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fascinating topic. It's one that I think does have a huge impact in society up and down the chain, but it does have an economic impact as well that I don't think we talk about nearly enough. Jerry, great piece, and thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks so much.
That's Jerry Useem, contributing writer at The Atlantic, covers business, economics for the New York Times, Fortune, other publications. And this whole idea of trust, I think, is such an important component for all of us to think through, especially coming out of COVID, where a lot of that connective tissue that we have in our businesses, in our organizations, and in our communities was really pulled away. And when you don't have that trust, that connective tissue, then it gets harder to solve problems. It gets harder to understand where people are coming from or why they're coming from a particular point of view. And it just takes some work. As Jerry said, it takes some hard work and heavy lifting to reestablish or to build trust. But I think Jerry got it right in terms of this is an aspect. It does impact the economy. If I don't trust my mechanic's going to deliver, if I don't trust my dentist to do what I think needs to be done, that trust just continues to be undermined, and it does have a negative impact on the economy. Something to think about. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. It's warming up this week.
Look at those temperatures, 81 on Friday.
Enticing many to visit Utah's swollen waterways.
Live KSL in the community. It is a very, very big show.
Join Dave and Debbie live from the banks of Cottonwood Creek this Thursday, 9 to noon for Utah Water Safety. We have you covered this week on KSL News Radio.
Hey, can I tell you one question that I have never been asked about my soda weight loss journey? No one has ever asked me if soda weight loss works. Why? Because the results don't lie. As you know, I let go of 37 pounds in 90 days. Those are real results. I'm almost 2.5 years into my journey, still 37 pounds down. Real results. So the question I do get asked is, how does soda weight loss work? It's in the name, soda. It stands for state-of-the-art weight loss because it is state-of-the-art. It's based on science. Soda only employs nutritionists and dietitians who love helping people reach their goals and keep those healthy results for the rest of their lives. No fads, no pills, no potions, just science, just nutrition. It's changing the game, real results. As I always say, when it comes to your soda weight loss journey, there's no time to lose. There's only time to win. So start winning today. Your healthy tomorrow starts today. Make that decision. Get started at state-of-the-art weight loss, SOTAweightloss.com.
When you think of Utah's homeless, who do you see? They are people with names and faces. And many are in dire circumstances. They are men and women, and sometimes children. Many are living on the street, in a car, or in a shelter. Some choose to be homeless. Most do not. Many experience the challenges of addiction or mental illness. All are vulnerable. Homelessness is a crisis, one that affects us all. Utah is building a coalition of community leaders and concerned citizens united to end the plight of homelessness. Homelessness should not mean hopelessness. Learn more at projecthumandignity.org. A message from Utah Impact Partnership.
Jeff Kaplan here with Josh Moore from IWC Roofing. Josh, on our show yesterday, you made a very special offer for our listeners.
$2,000 off an entire roof purchase. It's by far the largest promo that we've ever ran in almost 30 years of business. And in addition to that, we can actually do financing. So not one or the other, but we can combine the two.
So you're going to keep it going an extra day, but why IWC Roofing?
The question is, why not IWC Roofing? We're the highest rated roofing contractor in the state. We've been in business for 30 years, and hands down, because of the volume that we do and this additional promo that we're running, we will get you the best value out there on a new roof purchase, guaranteed.
And they'll do your entire roof in one day. Get $2,000 off, but you have to call today. IWC Roofing, 801-232-5690, 801-232-5690. That's 801-232-5690, or go to IWCRoofingUtah.com. Thanks, Josh.
You bet. Thanks. Springtime in Utah, and if you hate to paint, do what your neighbor Judy did. She called Rhino Shield.
After having the house painted with kind of usual house paint, I was seeing cracks appearing about every 3 years and just wasn't very satisfied with that.
Rhino Shield ceramic technology is formulated for our unique climate here in Utah and is Class 1 fire rated.
I can't speak highly enough about the Rhino Shield crew. They also were great at working with me to get the exact right color because I was very particular.
Utah, you too can have the 25-year guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield for 15% off the regular price.
I would not hesitate to call Rhino Shield, and I am just thrilled to recommend Rhino Shield to my friends and neighbors and family.
This offer is limited. Call 435-246-4466, 435-246-4466, or RhinoShieldWest.com.
Rhino Shield.
Progressive knows finding your new home was a dream come true. You wanted a walk-up with central air and a skylight, and you found it. Now, every Friday night, you get to fall asleep to the sound of your downstairs neighbors' dance parties. Progressive can't save you from your noisy neighbors, but we can save you money when you bundle your home and auto with us. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Common Spirit Health. Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with human kindness is here. Hello, human kindness.
The Good Feet store, the life you love, starts here.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, the mayor of Draper wants to raise taxes to boost salaries for police and firefighters. Second, the woman accused of murdering her husband and then writing a book about grief has been convicted on another charge, assaulting her sister-in-law. And third, fighting around the city of Rafah in Gaza has trapped some American aid workers. Right now, 74 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
In our societal debates and political debates, every side attempts to assert the moral high ground for their position, whatever that may be. We see this happening in Congress almost every minute, reclaiming who actually has the moral high ground. Of course, now we're seeing it on college campuses as well. But maybe the real issue in all of these discussions is, I wonder if we've lost our bearings as to where the moral high ground actually is. Jeffrey Bilbrough is an associate professor of English at Grove City College and editor-in-chief of Front Porch Republic, and has a great piece over with our friends at the Dispatch called Higher Ed's Fragmented Morality. And Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Good to be on this afternoon.
So let's dive into this. Love the way you went about this piece in terms of this fragmented morality. Everyone always seems to be claiming it. I'm starting to question if anybody knows where it actually is anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I think you just see, especially, again, on higher ed campuses and education contexts, that so many of the debates we have are irresolvable. On the terms that they take place, there really is no way to resolve them. And so they just kind of, people talk past each other, they go around in circle, and we don't actually make any progress.
Yeah, and so as you look at that, whether it's just kind of the assertion, counter-assertion, we're talking past each other, we're yelling talking points at each other is what we tend to see on both college campuses and on definitely on national cable news. How do we start changing that dynamic to where we get back into that space where you can get to that, what you pointed out in your piece, is that genuine persuasion?
Yeah, I think we have to recognize that moral debates have to take place within coherent moral traditions with explicit premises regarding who humans are, kind of transcendent questions. And for a lot of reasons, us Americans, people in the West, have thought that religion was the source of conflict, and that if we could just sort of bracket off religion, then we could find agreement and function well in a pluralistic society. And I think to some extent that can be true. But you can't actually resolve some of these tough questions without appeals to transcendent claims. So I think part of it is being comfortable bringing our full moral traditions with us into the public square, and sometimes sustaining institutions that are very missional and explicit about their religious purpose.
Yeah, that's such a vital component. We often get to that on this show, that everyone's got to be able to bring their whole authentic self into the public square, onto the university, into those spaces, and we need to have that respect across our differences. In a pluralistic society, we can respect, we can have value, and we can engage in a different kind of conversation that, to me, has to have a lot of curiosity in it of, I wonder why she thinks that's a good way to go, or I wonder why he thinks that's good public policy. But it seems on many campuses, as you said, we've sort of bracketed everything off, and it prevents any meaningful dialogue from really happening.
Yeah, and I think the kind of fruitful dialogue that you're describing just requires a lot of patience, right? It's going to require sitting with somebody else and trying to understand the whole set of assumptions and narrative about human purpose and the world in order to then get to some particular disputed issue of the day. And certainly social media does not foster that kind of patient, inquisitive disposition.
No patience, no inquiring, and no nuance allowed, because you can't do that in a few characters.
Right.
So as you look at how we try to move this all forward and kind of get back to putting those pieces back together, how do we do, especially on college campuses, how do we kind of reorient so that we can have that kind of different conversation?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, I think there is real possibility in kind of carving out spaces within institutions or carving out institutional settings where we can engage one another in that kind of substantive mode. So whether it's a classroom or a club on a campus, or whether it is a small liberal arts Christian college or college in another clear moral tradition, I think those can become kind of schools for inquiry and schools for discourse, and shape people in the virtues and dispositions necessary for that kind of conversation. And then hopefully, as we step out of those places, we're able to carry those virtues and practices with us in the rest of our lives. But I think we have to recover kind of that those spheres of civic society and those thick institutions where we can carry on those debates.
Yeah, those thick institutions are so vital, I think, to all of this. And one of the things you pointed out in your piece is that there are many religious colleges and institutions that struggle to maintain that kind of that moral compass, that moral mission in the face of a lot of the politicized stuff, a lot of the polarization, a lot of the criticism. How do we make sure that those institutions continue to stand and are not just the targets of the kind of ridicule or scorn or whatever it may be that undermines our ability to have those better conversations?
Yeah, that's a real question. And I think about that a lot, and obviously it wasn't the focus of this piece. I sort of allude to the end, but I think that's a real issue. And I think we need to, cut each other some slack, extend more grace, and I think the tendency is when we're kind of feeling embattled to sort of hunker down and look, even amongst our friends and think, well, who might be a traitor here, and how can I sort of narrow the bounds of my tribe? But I would hope that we could extend grace to one another and think, okay, well, I agree with these people on a lot of things, and maybe here are some issues where there's some disagreement, but I want to extend them generosity and, not lead with sort of sniping from the sidelines, but look for ways to listen and learn. So I think you see this in so many institutions that they're just sort of torn down by critics from the outside, and that's part of why I think so many of our civic institutions are on the run right now.
Yeah, and it has become a form of intolerant tolerance. Everyone's yelling for tolerance, but only with those I agree with. Everyone else is out, and I think that becomes such a part of the problem. I was thinking back on a conversation I had with Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of the UK before he passed away a couple years ago, and he talked about how the society we live in gives us a maximum of choice but a minimum of meaning. And sometimes it's because of this kind of approach in terms of that moral high ground and just moral ground. I think we can all get to the higher ground, but we have to get rid of the contempt. We have to get rid of a lot of those things that just pull us down. Give us one last thing, Professor, in terms of what we should be doing. What should we do today to help change the dynamic?
Yeah, I think, one thing is to look for those institutions that we can support and encourage and build up. How can we be part of the mending rather than the sniping? And, we all have our own spheres of influence and our own communities. But if we can sort of be more generous participants in those spaces, I think that can go a long way toward encouraging those who are trying to sustain the possibility of tough moral conversations. Yeah,
so important. This is a fantastic piece. Check this out at thedispatch.com. Our friends over there at The Dispatch, Jeffrey Bilbrough, Associate Professor of English at Grove City College, Editor-in-Chief at Front Porch Republic. And Jeff, thanks so much for joining us today. Fantastic piece.
Thanks so much.
All right, that's a great conversation, and one we will come back to often as we look at how do we do that on college campuses? How do we do that in our own communities? When it comes to this fragmented morality, and how do we keep the conversation all moving forward? We'll step aside for bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. 9 felony charges announced today against the man accused of hitting and killing Santaquin Police Sergeant Bill Hoosier.
On Saturday, after a short stay at the University of Utah Hospital, Michael Aaron Jane was booked into the Utah County Jail on suspicion of murder.
Utah County Attorney Jeffrey Gray says they've reviewed all the evidence against Michael Jane, but they won't be talking about the details publicly. He's scheduled to appear in court tomorrow to hear those charges read out. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Walmart is cutting hundreds of jobs. The retail giant also announced it's asking most of its remote workers to get back into the office. ABC's Alexis Christoforous has more.
This comes at a time when Walmart and a lot of other retailers are struggling. Consumer spending is still not where it was just a few years ago. People are not spending as much on discretionary items like clothing, and Walmart is feeling it.
Walmart is the largest private employer in the country. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing trading today up 126 points. NASDAQ up 122. The S&P 500 was up 25. And our KSL weather looks like a few very nice days coming up. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Achieving the extraordinary, getting things done. That's the Utah way. And that's Brad Wilson. He delivered the biggest tax cut Utah's ever seen, keeping more money in your pocket. And on the Second Amendment, when others caved, Brad Wilson stood tall, enacted constitutional carry. Wilson stood up to the EPA, sued Joe Biden to protect Utah's energy industry, and won. And when others backed down on illegal immigration, Wilson didn't buckle. He banned sanctuary cities. In the U.S. Senate, he'd bring the Utah way to Washington, taking Joe Biden's agenda head on. That's why over 60 mayors, 22 sheriffs, and leading conservatives across Utah are supporting Brad Wilson for U.S. Senate, because Brad Wilson's the tested, trusted Utah conservative for U.S. Senate. Join them and thousands more supporting Brad Wilson at electbradwilson.com.
I'm Brad Wilson, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Wilson for Senate.
What was that? That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud phone system. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very...
Calm? I am. Ooma has everything I need to run my business more efficiently, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business calm at ooma.com/radio.
Pizza's here. Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
In real estate, it's all about the amenities. I should know. I'm an agent.
At Hyundai, all of our models offer first-class features, like Android Auto, an available Bose premium audio system, heated front and rear seats, and wireless device charging.
It's like an upscale home on wheels in here.
It's your journey. Own every mile.
Right now, lease the Hyundai Tucson for $229 a month, or get up to $2,000 retail bonus cash. See your Utah Hyundai dealer. Offers end 6/3/24. Call 480-500-7931 for details.
A fiduciary has the regulatory obligation to put your best interest first. Trajan Wealth is a financial fiduciary for your investments. With Trajan Wealth, the more you make, the more we make. Our interests are aligned. Most other financial advisors are brokers held to a lesser standard and are paid an upfront commission to sell you something. Call Trajan Wealth 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Dino Day. Celebrate on June 1st at all Sinclair locations. Here's Ricky Meese.
A good drive on the Valley freeways, but in Summit County, we have a vehicle fire westbound on I-80 blocking a right lane of traffic. It's about halfway between Wasatch and about 5 miles prior to Emory, and it is causing some delays. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We could see a few showers on the Wasatch Front today. Actually, that's probably done by now, but the rest of the week looks dry with a warming trend. Highs will be in the 70s and 80s on Friday. And right now, 73 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson.
On Utah's home for elevated conversation.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, when we often look at governing, when we look at governing versus politicking, it's usually a case of, after all is said and done, much more gets said than gets done. But there are actually some things getting done in our nation's capital that really matter, that we have to get to. We do have those who are still kind of in that mode of political posturing and a lot of performative politics. And that's sort of become the mode for a lot of folks out there. But it's often said that you campaign in poetry, but you have to govern in prose. Lately, it seems like we're campaigning in anger and angst and fear and frustration, and then it gets worse from there. But as I said, we have to get to the governing portion of the program, and one of the issues that is crucial to us, especially here in Utah and in the West, has to do with public lands. And so we want to get into a few of those issues where governing is actually taking place. Representative John Curtis joins us on the line with a newly passed West Act that seeks to revoke some of those rules and some of those debates about preservation, good public policy, and land policy. And joining us on the line is Representative John Curtis. Representative, welcome back to the show.
Boyd, what a great lead-in. Thank you. You've made my day.
Well, let's get to that, because this is one of those areas that, again, is often under the radar for most folks. I don't know how many people got up this morning wondering about what the BLM was doing or what rules were being done, but it does impact us, especially our rural communities.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you live in rural, you probably did wake up this morning wondering what the BLM was going to do that was going to be problematic for you. Imagine this, a number of the counties I represent are over 90% federally owned. So whether it's putting in a road or building a school or recreating or hunting or grazing, their way of life is so dramatically impacted by the BLM and other federal agencies.
Yeah, and so some of those things that came out, even as recently as last week, some additional rules that were announced by the Bureau of Land Management, the BLM, that makes it a little more difficult to even do things like fire prevention, just good land management.
I'm so glad you brought it up that way, because sometimes when people hear Utah push back on these types of rules, the assumption is that we somehow don't want to preserve and take care of this land. It's not the issue at all. The issue is who should be making decisions, and why are we taking that decision authority away from people who know how to best fight fires, who know how to, take care of the land, and who have done it for generations and generations?
Yeah, and so as you look at some of those things going on, describe for some of these recently passed bills that you introduced, the West Act in particular, and what that actually means in terms of getting to those better policies.
So, yes, to try to describe it, it's a little bit tough, but let me just say the BLM issued a rule that would have allowed them to take large swaths of land and tie it up almost the way the president has used Antiquities Act, which is kind of unilaterally moving in on land without the proper procedure and feedback to make sure it's the best use. So, and it would have actually allowed leases to be made to NGOs that would have precluded, for instance, grazing and other traditional uses of the land, recreation, basically putting in private hands how this land is used by somebody who could live in a totally different country. So what could possibly go wrong, right? Like, why are we pushing back on this? It's not that we don't want to also take care of the land and preserve it. It's that we're very concerned about who ultimately is able to control this and make these decisions. And it's possible that it wouldn't be in the best interest of not just Utahns, but of all Americans.
Yeah, I think that's such an important piece of this. And so this bill that would reverse some of those trends from the BLM, again, getting to those right kind of multiple land. I always say we end up with the fake fight and the false choice on so many of these. And this is about good conservation, good stewardship of the land, and what is in the best interest of those who are actually on the land or get their living from the land.
Exactly. And who, by the way, have done a pretty remarkable job for generations in preserving and taking care of it and using it well. So we did pass the bill through committee, through House, and moved it on to the Senate. And we need some help over there in the Senate to get this bill moving, but it's an important bill.
Yeah, I want to get to one other bill that you've been moving through, the Advanced Nuclear Reactor Prize Act that actually did pass the House. Give us a sense of what that's about, why that matters.
This is a great bipartisan bill. And, it's interesting. I like to tease my Democratic colleagues that, when I first went to Congress 7 years ago, they didn't like nuclear unless they were in an elevator with you by themselves. Then they would tell you, yeah, we're going to need it. But today, it is a very bipartisan issue, and people can see that we are not going to reach our energy or our climate goals without nuclear, and not just a little bit of nuclear, substantial nuclear. Yet the roadway is littered with attempts, good attempts, but failed because of government bureaucracy, over regulation and the cost of that regulation. So this bill is targeted at that and would actually let the Secretary of Energy award grants to people who are licensing first-of-kind nuclear reactors, advanced reactors, and that's where we want to go. By the way, we don't want to build the nuclear reactors of our grandparents. We want, the new innovation that is just, really, really important. And so I'm trying to facilitate that and get this rolling. I'll tell you, just in Utah alone, there's one AI project that would, just for that project alone, it would require 1.5 times all the energy used for Wyoming, just for one. And so our growing energy needs are so dramatic that we've got to be figuring out some of these things. And nuclear is a piece, not the only piece, but is a very important piece of that puzzle.
Yeah, and one of the things you pointed out there, Congressman, that I think is so important for us to look at, we were talking earlier in the program about President Biden going out to talking about its infrastructure week again, and I think that keeps coming up, and part of that is because he's found out it's actually really hard to spend over $1 trillion because there's so many rules and regulations and lawsuits that a lot of the things he was hoping to tout as successes, no shovels have hit the ground yet because of the regulatory burden.
It's so true. We refer to that as permitting reform back in Washington, and it's the hot topic. It's also a bipartisan topic, and without it, we cannot build the energy infrastructure, but it goes beyond that. It's, for instance, even broadband is impacted by this, and it's a substantial impediment to our country's prosperity and, quite frankly, safety. Our energy independence and other things are dependent on us figuring this out.
Great stuff. As always, Representative John Curtis joining us on the line. Those are some important things that are moving forward, some bipartisan work that is part of the not after all is said and done, more is said than done. This is the doing part, the governing portion of the program. And Congressman Curtis, we always appreciate you carving out some time for us.
Thanks, Boyd. Hope to be back soon.
All right. Again, that's Representative John Curtis, Utah's 3rd Congressional District. These are important pieces of law and legislation that are moving through. They're bipartisan in nature. And the thing that I think is most important on this kind of work, again, it's not the stuff you're going to see on any of the national cable news shows today, but it does matter because it gets us to the principle that leads to good policy. And when it comes to being stewards of the land, the congressman described it really well. Those in our rural communities here in the state of Utah do a really great job. They've done it for generations. They care about the land because they live on it. They depend on it. And so do we. And so having the right kind of conversations, not just the fake fight, false choice stuff that we often hear coming out of Washington. This is one of those initiatives from Congressman Curtis that is really about this is how we move it forward. This is how we can have the and conversation. We can be responsible for the land. We can be good stewards of the land. We can leave it better. And we can make sure that the control is at the local level, those who know it best, and those who are most invested in making sure it lasts for generations to come. All right, we'll step aside for one last break. Some final thoughts coming up on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
The sun is out and the temps are up. It's time to seize the day and hit the road. You were born to ride, and now's the time to make your dreams a reality. Imagine the wind in your hair as you cruise on your very own power scooter. Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical, and these scooters aren't just for getting around. They're your ticket to freedom. With speeds up to 6 miles per hour, you'll own the road like never before. From graduation to concerts and vacations, our power scooters will get you there in style and ease. Don't wait another minute. The time to ride is now. Let's start your adventure today. Visit us online at alpinehomemedical.com. That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Join the KSL Greenhouse Show Saturday from 8 to 11 at the Conservation Garden Park's open house in West Jordan. That's the Conservation Garden Park in West Jordan.
Advertising used to be simple. Your options were radio, TV, newspaper, and let's not forget the yellow pages. Now it seems like a tidal wave of options. Podcast, cable TV, streaming, OTT, CTV, audio networks, smart speakers. On top of that, you need digital marketing for your website along with SEM, SEO, display, video, YouTube, email, and all the social media platforms. Look, you're the expert in your business. Wouldn't it be nice to have an expert to market you? We are Bonneville Salt Lake, the local marketing and media company you know and trust. We reach customers across all digital and social platforms and have the reach of traditional advertising available as well. We find your customer anytime, any place, anywhere on any device here in Utah or anywhere in the world. We work to optimize your results with our in-house local team of experts, providing you with qualified leads, not just impressions. Contact Stephanie Palmer at KSL for a free consultation, including a complete digital audit with no obligation or cost to you. Email spalmer@ksl.com. That's spalmer@ksl.com.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
As a business owner, you don't have time for automated systems. You need real support. Mountain America Credit Union can help businesses of all sizes. Mountain America has the personalized service and financial tools for success. From checking and cash management to merchant services and loans, we can help you reach your goals. Get real results. Get Mountain America Business Services. Loans on approved credit. Membership required based on eligibility. Learn more at macu.com/business.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for less. And for a limited time, new customers receive their second month free when they sign up and use promo code MONTHFREE by May 31st. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
Did you hear? Macy's one-day sale is today with limited-time specials to help you get ready for summer. Like 25 to 30% off active gear for him and for her. And 40 to 70% off shoes, handbags, and jewelry for the perfect look. Plus, save 45 to 60% on dining and entertaining from Lennox, Fitz & Floyd, and more. Macy's Star Rewards members earn on every purchase except gift cards, services, and fees. Savings off regular and clearance prices. Exclusions apply.
Guys, are you ready to give up because you think you've tried everything and you're still dealing with loss of energy, poor sleep, weight gain, and even ED? Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City has local medical providers that offer low T and ED treatments customized to each patient's unique physical makeup. By working with a specialized compounding lab, personalized treatments are guaranteed, even when generic pills and supplements haven't worked. It all starts with your free comprehensive exam and consultation. Availability is limited. Book today, and for this month only, Revive offers qualified patients a free 1-month supply of personalized ED medication, plus a free ED treatment producing immediate results. The experts at Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City will work to provide the right treatment for you so you can show up as the best you in all aspects of your life. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or send them a private message at revivemenshealth.com.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
Looking for a secure retirement plan without market risk? Look no further. Lyle Boss, president of Boss Financial, specializes in no market risk retirement strategies with guarantees of principal, guaranteed growth, and lifelong income. Join Lyle right here each Saturday and Sunday for his Safe Money radio show and call him now at 855-355-SAFE for your complimentary customized Safe Money information kit and Safe Money book. Nothing but upside here at 855-355-SAFE.
If you've got a honey-do list with electrical, plumbing, heating, or air conditioning projects on it, Any Hour Services can help. Call Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air. anyhourservices.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, the man accused of killing a Santaquin police officer will be in court tomorrow, facing a list of 9 felony charges, including aggravated murder. Second, the Division of Wildlife Resources is hoping anglers will help them get rid of the walleye at Strawberry Reservoir. And third, Walmart laying off hundreds of workers as retailers around the country are struggling. 73 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It is great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson as we round out the program today. If you missed anything along the way, because I know some of you are busy as you go through your day, but if you missed anything, you want to go check out KSLpodcast.com, where you can hear any segment of the show. We do them all as little mini podcasts, so you can go back to any one of our amazing guests, pick up on the conversation there. I often go back through because I take notes, because our guests give us such great insight, such great nuance on the important issues of the day that always get us back to those important principles that lead to better policy, that lead to better results for all of us. So if you want to have a little more confidence in your conversations, especially as it relates to what's going on in our country and in our communities, just go to KSLpodcast.com and you can check those out every day. It's a great way to go back and get a little refresher or get a little deeper dive in terms of some of the things we talk about on the show. And one of the things I want to close out with today was a great piece at Deseret.com today by our good friend Lois Collins, talking about handwriting and why handwriting actually beats typing for enhanced memory and learning. Those of you who follow the show know I am very big on handwriting. My handwriting is atrocious, by the way, and my spelling is pretty wobbly, but I still believe in the power of a pen. In fact, a good friend of mine, Barry Packer, and I actually wrote an entire book on handwritten response a number of years ago, and I still believe, one, it's the best way to have impact and influence, much better than a text message or even a voicemail or a FaceTime. You can really impact and connect with somebody. But it's also important in terms of your memory, in terms of learning. I have found that if I ever really want to know what I think about something, I'll write it out with a pen and a piece of paper. It's a different portion of your brain that gets fired and gets engaged as you do it with a pen as opposed to doing it with a keyboard or just on your digital device. And this piece by Lois Collins at Deseret.com goes into the science of all of that in terms of what is happening in our institutions of learning. Of course, nobody's teaching cursive anymore, and very few are even doing much handwriting at all. And so students are growing up, even association with words is usually done by pecking them out on a keyboard. Very different portion of your brain, makes a different connection between letters and words and sentences and paragraphs, and also in terms of the meaning. And there's some really great studies that Lois points out in her piece at Deseret.com that make me wonder, why are we getting so far afield in this pursuit of trying to be more efficient when we're losing what's really effective? One of the things that Lois pointed out in her piece is that even in a class, if you're taking notes, some people are so proficient at typing that they can almost dictate what a teacher would be saying. But that doesn't mean they're actually learning the concepts or the principles or the application. It just means they're good at dictation. Now, dictation can be a good skill, but it is not the skill that you need in the 21st century. It's thinking and remembering pieces of data and getting those pieces of data into context. That's what communication is all about. And so most of the studies show that you're way better off writing it out than you are typing it out. It gets deeper into your memory. As I said, it gets more into the context of things, which just makes that remembering of it a little deeper and a little bit stronger. Also interesting in some of the research and some of the data that while the technological advances are important, the one value that should not be dropped is this handwritten component, using a pen. Even if they're using a stylus on an iPad, that's still better than typing it out with a keyboard, because it gets to better, longer-lasting learning, gets to that recognition, understanding of letters, memory, recall. All of those things become more conceptual to our overall understanding than what happens when we're just typing away on a computer keyboard. Now, for me, it's not only getting to what I actually think, because, again, it's a different portion of your brain that you're tapping into. And I think the same thing is true as we try to have relationships with other people. Again, a letter typed out, an email is a great thing. You can put a few characters into a string of text messages, fine. You can post a few things on social media, good. But try writing it out. Again, especially if you're trying to think something out. I always tell young people, if you got to learn to be a writer. If you want to be in the radio business, the news business, the TV business, any business, you have to be a great communicator. Communication skills are so crucial, and they're so lacking, especially coming out of the pandemic. And so I often challenge young people, if you really want to know what you think about something, write it out by hand with a pen on paper. Fine, use a stylus and an iPad if you need to, if that's just one bridge too far. But I promise if you do that, you'll get a better perspective in terms of what you really think about something. And you'll probably tap into a few things that maybe were under the surface that you didn't quite recognize before. And that's important to learning as well. It's important to understanding ourselves a little bit better. But it all requires us to slow down, to just take a little bit more time and a little bit more of a process. We'll talk on another day about all the impacts of handwritten expression and what it can do in our interaction with other people. But for today, start with yourself in terms of what you think and what you know. Or if you're trying to improve your memory just a little bit, write it down. If you're trying to get a little more organized and structured, just write it down. If you're trying to help young people in your life, whether it's teaching them how to read or how to have good comprehension, have them write it out with a pen. And if they're in junior high and high school and college, write it out with a pen. They'll understand what they think better. The learning will go deeper. They'll have better context and better memory in the process as well. So pull out a pen today and a piece of paper. It'll do you some good. All right, that wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today here on KSL News Radio. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us. And as always, as you go out into the world, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference.